is the girl.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Indie Radio presents Talking About Walkers, the Walking Dead podcast, the show that breaks down all new episodes of your favorite zombie TV show right here on indieradio.org. And now, here are the hosts of the podcast, Kinte, Jen, and Olaf. Hello, and welcome to Talking About Walkers, the Walking Dead podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kinte, all the way live from Los Angeles, California. And I'm here with the beautiful, the wonderful, the talented, the amazing Jen. How you doing, Jen?
Wow, I'm apparently super buttered up.
Yes. So, Miss Jen, how are you, and what is it like just, chilling in such a wonderful, beautiful place that you are, that you reside in? Start there.
Well, I feel like that's a really good place to start, actually. There's very few places on the entire globe that are like this place. However, I will say that does come with some issues. Earlier today, I went to the store and bought bread for $7.
Yeah.
$7 for a loaf of bread.
Come on, a lap dance?
Yeah.
They come with a lap dance?
Oh my God. No, it didn't come with anything. It didn't even come with a fancy wrapper. It was just, wheat and yeast. Ay.
My God.
Also, if you don't buy milk on sale here, milk is now at $11 a gallon.
Oh.
I mean, that's 2 gallons of gas.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So as beautiful as it is, everybody, and as gorgeous as the weather is, and as wonderful as the people are, if you come to Maui, please bring your credit cards.
Oh,
that's all I can say, because you probably don't have enough cash. You
wow.
probably need to put this on your credit card.
My whole fantasy of going there is really ruined. Thanks a lot, Jen.
Oh, sorry. I was so disturbed. Normally I don't actually pay that for bread. I normally, go out of my way to go to someplace like, Target or Walmart or whatever. And today I just couldn't, and I ended up paying full price for a loaf of bread. But that tells you something about, how they talk about the cost of paradise? Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the cost of paradise. This is it. So I'll go back to talking about my sunny days and my happy beach-filled moments and watching the waves come in, and just remember there is a dark side.
Wow, you've actually made it real for us. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jen. A little sad, but yeah, you made it real.
Listen, of all the things to be upset about, paying $7 for a loaf of bread is probably one of the least on anybody's list. So we'll get by. Don't worry, everybody. It's okay. We don't need a GoFundMe just yet.
Okay. Well, I was just about to get it started. Just about to get it started.
Jen's bread.
All right. So enough of the bread, I guess. Let's talk about Chokepoint, episode 13 of season 9 of The Walking Dead. This one's directed by, I think it's Liesl Tommy, who is a woman, a female director, and written by Eddie Gazillian, David Leslie Johnson, McGoldrick as well. And it aired March 10th. And this episode was really good. Very good.
This was a good one.
And I'm harsh when it doesn't deserve it. I mean, when it does deserve it, I'm sorry.
Freudian slip.
Right. People are going to be like, see, I knew it. I'm harsh when it deserves it, and I'm also giving praise when it deserves it. And this one deserved praise. And there's so much going on. Of course, the big part is the Daryl Beta matchup. Let's save that part to the end. And you know what? I got a question for you, Jen.
Okay.
It's the end of the world as we know it. There's zombies going around. Food is scarce. You know, you've watched your loved ones die, right?
Okay.
But you're still alive. It's been years after that, and you're still alive. What is something that you probably wouldn't have access to from the past that you would really miss?
Oh, good question. Fresh baked bread.
Hey, it wouldn't be $7.
Actually, you know what, the thing that I think I would probably miss the most is you know, that feeling that you get when your clothes are sort of like fresh from the laundry.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would miss that a lot. It maybe too much so for maybe most people wouldn't think that was important, but I would feel like walking around in gross clothes would be probably the worst.
It would definitely. Well, in this episode, we find out
It wouldn't be a movie, that's for sure. As much as I love my movies, if the end of the world comes around, you're not going to lure me any.
Yeah, you just stepped all over my punchline, but it's okay. In this episode, we find out that one of the things that is missing for the group called the Highwaymen is an opportunity to see a movie. And you know what? We got to give Carol credit. When Carol needs to slit someone's throat, she can do it. When she needs to bake cookies, she can do it. And also, she knows, she's a diplomat as well. And she realized what the choke point was. You like that? For the Highwaymen, which was, hey, you guys are in this dusty ass room. Y'all not really doing anything of consequence. Look, we have movies. And it worked. The highwaymen said, really? Oh shit. Well then, you know what? Hey. Now my question is, I wonder what the first movie post-apocalypse, and you hadn't seen a movie in 7 years or whatever, how long it's been. I wonder what the first movie you would want to see would be. What would, if you were going to see a movie and you could pick anyone?
Well, wouldn't it be the movie? You'd almost be limited to the movies that were playing in the theater at the time that the apocalypse happened, right? Because the movie theaters aren't going to be hanging on to old film reels.
Let's say it's one of those theaters that show movies from all the time. So let's just say you had access to
it. Bridge on the River Kwai.
Yeah, that's your favorite movie. Okay, yes. Yeah, and mine would be The Good, the Bad, the Ugly for sure. What movie that you wouldn't want to see even post-apocalypse? If that was the only movie that there was left, you would just like forget movies.
Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber. Hilarious. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that movie either. I know people love that movie. I don't know why. It didn't make me laugh.
No,
it didn't make me laugh. Okay. So that was really interesting. And we're going to double back to the Highwaymen. All right? Because, we want to talk a little bit more about them. But I have one more personal question.
Oh, boy. Okay, I'll try
how
to
many
answer.
kids do you have?
Too many.
3 kids. Okay. 3. Have you ever been traveling and let's say you didn't have a cradle or a stroller or something, and have you ever like put the kids in like a Foot Locker or the chest with drilled holes in it?
Okay, actually, we did have at one point this really awesome car seat that my kid decided to get sick in and whatever, and we put him in a laundry basket for the longest time because it was a really long trip. So he was in the laundry basket, but he was fine. I mean,
it's not so bad. Not so bad.
He didn't seem to suffer any ill effects.
Yeah. So okay, so I thought that was a great scene, you know, where they put the kid in there. And I'm like this, who's
I did too, actually. I thought that was pretty good. That was
who's gonna
really
let their
clever.
baby, you know, as an actor baby? Like who's I'm not if when I'm like, oh yeah, okay, so this is what we want to do with little Johnny. There's a scene where Brett Butler, you know Brett Butler, right? It's great comedian, right? Remember her show from back in the day? Brett Butler is going to take your kid and it's going to put it in a chest, but it has holes in the chest. Like, how do you convince a parent that's to do that? I guess money. I guess they're not going to be in there that long.
That must have been that must have been creative camera work. So. They put a doll in there.
No, it was a baby. But maybe maybe there was, like you said, creative camera work. But yeah. But anyway, I thought that was a interesting thing.
You know what's interesting about that? What's interesting about that is it made people talk. So all the stuff that's going on in the episode, and that actually did make people talk. So clearly, our values are still 100% with taking care of the baby. Is the baby okay? That I feel like that's a good sign.
I think so too. Yeah, baby will be okay. The baby's barely been here. What is it with babies in harm? This is what 2 weeks in a row, huh? Yeah, they're coming for our babies.
That what? Oh, right? No kidding.
Poor babies. I'm scared of like if they're like, hey, we want your kid to be on Walking Dead. I'm like, no, thank you. Yeah.
The post-apocalypse is no place for an infant. I think that should be the tagline for The Walking Dead.
Right. Okay, so let's go double back to the Highwaymen. What did you think about? What's your thoughts of the Highwaymen? I mean, besides selling out for the for the movie.
Okay, so first, I like this addition. Secondly, it wasn't at all what I thought. Third, clearly Carol is all to blame for this, and she is right. She absolutely is. She took out the saviors in that one fell swoop move and left a power vacuum, and the Highwaymen just like slid right in there. That was it was pretty short-sighted on Carol's side. So, but last and maybe certainly not least is, how could you not like a bunch of guys that look basically like cosplayers in the zombie apocalypse? I mean, it was just epic. They were, not only were their outfits just on point, but every one of them riding horses was, and the music that went along with it, that I fell in love. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I like that, man.
I don't even care if they were good or bad. It didn't matter.
And they were pretty tough. Like, they knew how to handle themselves. So I thought they were really good. Yeah, I liked them.
It's interesting. The Highwaymen are totally made up. That's totally, there is no comic book Highwaymen. So we don't know anything about them, which is kind of cool.
I like it. Yeah, I have no problem with them adding that into there. Yeah. So I'm.
You know what it does? It ties up the kingdom so that they can't sort of rush in and quickly save Hilltop, or not that they're really in a position to do that, but it ties them up in a way that keeps them out of the Whisperer's storyline, which I feel like is a good thing. Because we don't want this. Well, we don't want this. I mean, like, I'm talking like I'm one of the writers, because it would be, I think, a shame to all of a sudden have all of the communities involved in war so quickly all over again.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yes. Yeah.
So this kind of is it's a conflict, and it's definitely a pretty big sort of issue for them to deal with, but it keeps them out of that other storyline, which I actually like.
Yes, I definitely agree. And do you okay? Let's I think later down the line we're gonna have much more to say about them. So if you mind, we'll table that for when they have a bigger part in it. But I definitely wanted to address it. But there's two characters that we've talked about, but I feel like maybe we need to give them a little more talking about than we have. And that is Tammy and Earl Sutton. Brett Butler and John Finn play them. I'm really interested to see how much they're going to have to do with the show going forward. And by giving them the baby, also, does that mean that they're going to, are they here to stay? And what do you, I mean, they had their big arc early, but what do you think about them as characters? And are they characters you want to see more of going forward?
So, one of my big complaints about TV right this very second is that everybody rushes to what I call, sorry, CW, but I'm going to use you as a verb. They want to CW all their shows. Mm-hmm. They want the youngest, most, and in some ways it feels almost economic that they do this stuff. Like they pull in people that maybe aren't very well known, but are definitely playing parts that are not necessarily the parts that people that are 19 to 24 should even be playing. And it feels artificial sometimes. It feels like, wow, the whole world cannot possibly be 19 to 24. I mean, every universe, the only interesting people are 19 to 24. That seems ridiculous. Right. So when shows go out of their way to make characters have that are interesting, have arcs, it feels like they're being genuine to the character base instead of just creating a world where only the people who are younger can solve everything. And I know it sounds, I feel like I should grab a cane and say, get off my lawn. But that's really not where I'm coming from, right? If the world is really that devoid of people that are older, then all the collective wisdom that has been accumulated disappears too. And how anybody relates to anybody else becomes sort of difficult, I think, to maintain. So here you have two characters that can act as both mentors to other characters, but also can carry on with knowledge that the rest of the world might not have. And they do that in some ways by making him a blacksmith, by giving them sort of interesting backstories that most people don't have. And so the short answer is I really like it. The long answer is, wow, it's really refreshing to see that, so that, and I almost thought last week when they got the baby, I almost thought that that meant that they were going to die.
Really?
Yeah, I almost felt like that's exactly what the portent was, because we're not going to give a baby to the older people. We're definitely going to give the baby to somebody who's younger and stronger. And I don't know, it just felt like that's where it was going. So I'm glad that isn't what happened, because I mean, I know the demographics have to
you mean last
have
week?
some. Yeah.
Okay.
I know the demographics have to have some, obviously you have to have groups that everybody can relate to. But at some point, it gets so unrealistic to have everybody be around the same age. Like that just doesn't, it just feels ridiculous. So.
Oh. Well, I mean, I give you a lot of credit for giving me something to think about, because I'm so young and everything, and that's my generation, right? The youth. No, I'm just kidding. I'm glad that I really didn't pay much to attention to those characters. Besides, I didn't really think that they were going to be really in the show like that. So I really didn't think about it very much. But now I'm starting to think, what? Maybe I need to pay more attention to these characters.
They've got a good, they've got an already good established presence at Hilltop, that not just other characters know them, but clearly other characters also respect certain things about them. And with Maggie gone, it it almost seems like sins of the past can be a little bit more forgiven. So, their fresh slate feels a lot more fresh without Maggie around.
Right. Yes. No, definitely. I really, yeah, I really am interested in those characters, and hopefully, they'll have a good run on the show. So maybe when Carol dies, no, I'm just playing. I'm just kidding, fans. Just kidding. No, but that's good though. I like that. Yeah, and they're interesting characters as well. Before
they say interesting things, which is, I like that. Like, they actually get good lines of dialogue. It's not just that they get to participate in stuff. They actually have some pretty thoughtful dialogue. And the dialogue, the addiction dialogue, was crazy. That was so well written. I realized that was a while ago, but it was so good. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. And like Brett Butler is a really good actress as well. John Finn, I've been a huge fan of John Finn going way back. I don't know if you're an X-Files fan. He was had a pivotal character in season 4, the end of season 4 and the beginning of the season 5 of the X-Files, and he's just a really good actor, very good. So I was glad to see. I hadn't seen him in a while in anything, so I was glad to see him, come out in this. So kudos to him. Now, before we get to the Daryl, Lydia, Henry part of it, is there anything that you want to cover before we get there, and then we'll save that part for the last?
Well, one thing that I thought about, not because they were shown, but just because they weren't shown, is where's Oceanside?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they're still around, and it's hard for me. Somebody who, I'll have to go back and see if I can find it. Maybe we can even post it in Indie Radio. They made a map of where the communities are based on the story clues, and it was really good. It was super interesting because it gives you a better perspective of where things might be located in the geography of where they are. And on the map, Oceanside is actually quite a distance away. So maybe that's why we don't see them. I don't know. But let's see. Is there anything specific? This episode really felt like it was a lot of action.
Mm-hmm.
Like it made up for, not made up for, that's the wrong word. It definitely filled a bit of a void in terms of character on character action.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I feel like that was actually quite good, because we have sort of had a couple of lull episodes, like soft or not quite as intense. And this episode felt like it was just nonstop action from almost the start to the end.
No, I agree. It was action galore, and I really enjoyed it. And it was good.
Also, hats off to whoever does the music for The Walking Dead. I mean, I know Bear McCreary does some, but whoever came up with that Western score for when the highwaymen were riding, man, that was awesome. That was just awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I liked it too. Very good. Very, very good stuff. All right, so let's get to the thing that everybody mostly remember this episode for.
The beta blocker.
Besides, actually, there was quite a bit. That's funny, by the way. There was quite a bit of stuff. The baby in the box, and also as we talked about it, the movie piece. But in this particular episode is, you had Lydia, you had Connie, Daryl, Dog, because we can't forget about Dog, Henry, and Daryl facing off against Beta and the gang. And the build up to this is one thing that this episode did very well. They did a great job of building up the anticipation to the showdown. Like
they did.
Yeah. I really, really liked it. Because by the time it actually happens, which is a really small as far as time, small bit of time on the show, build it up so much so that when it finally happened, it really lived up to it. And it was just really, the pacing was very good. And I really love that scene where they're marching in the Whisperers, and and they're amongst the other walkers. And I love that those shots of Beta looking up at Daryl, and then when he sees the one walker die, and he just kind of looks down at him, and he slowly looks back up. Oh, that is so good. Like that, and it really built up the anticipation to it. Like I hadn't been that excited in a while, and I really loved that scene. It was very well done, very shot well, and so, and then when they set up the trap and all of that, it was really good. And before we get into the actual action part of it, what'd you think about Lydia and Henry talking? The piece about, why'd you come back and give me, and him offering to run off with her and all that stuff.
So, okay. So I don't remember if we talked about this in the last episode. I know I talked about it with some, but the Henria Lydia thing reminds me about why I actually hate Romeo and Juliet. Two people, sorry, Shakespeare. I mean, love you, but two people fall in love and they can't see what is happening in the world around them. People die. And whether they think it's inconsequential or whether they are just experiencing something outside of that piece, people still die. And there are times when I feel like that kind of story is so incredibly short-sighted on the part of the characters. And I've always felt this way about the Walking Dead when people make some choices. But I also feel like I know you talked about it last week about how Henry is just basically, he's acting because that's how he's going to act.
He's whipped by the coochie he hasn't had yet.
There is something. There's something it feels not disingenuous necessarily, but just slightly off about this story. And I don't know if doing it the way that they made it happen with Carl would necessarily help. I think it's just, I have a fundamental issue with this idea that people who have been basically raised in the zombie apocalypse don't understand why the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and why that is what it is. Like, I mean, I understand why we need to see it the way that we see it, because fictionally this is what makes, compelling drama, but it just gets overused, and it doesn't even feel like this is the first time that The Walking Dead has sort of done that. And it never sits very well with me. It always makes me think, come on, people are smarter than this.
He's a young guy who hasn't seen a lot. I mean, well, when I say he hasn't seen a lot, I don't mean, obviously he's seen a lot more than the average person because he's had to kill people. Or has he killed anybody? He's had to kill walkers for sure. I don't remember him killing humans, but he's had to do a lot. But then if you think about it, this is the funny thing is, in this world, you grow up really fast in one way, but you can also make an argument that in other ways you're behind.
Mm.
with maybe, I mean, he's at that age, so you can make an argument maybe he would have already been kind of stunted when it comes to relationships with women. But it's funny how when you want to talk about it from a sociological way, Henry has obviously seen a lot, did a lot more than obviously anybody his age would have done, unless you've been gone to war. But like I said, he's still like a little kid too. You know.
Well, you're right. And I am
Mm-hmm.
being harsh because there is this in between phase which is one of the reasons that harkens back to I'm glad that they have older people, because if they only had younger people, then society would have reformed itself in a way that would have told people coming into uh, becoming adults that this is the way to behave and this isn't the way to behave. And so that we are in The Walking Dead, we are in sort of a weird transitional function, which I think is sort of, it's neither it's neither the old society nor the new society, really. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
a hybrid of both. So yeah, I mean, I can understand why Henry is confused. It's the core of the love story that always, and it's not because I'm jaded. I'm not disenfranchised with them having a love story. It's just that the love story is always the same thing over and over again, and it feels to me like at some point, not only do we want a different love story, but also this idea that collateral damage is somehow okay. It starts to wear on you after a while.
Mm-hmm.
At least it does to me. I mean, I
No,
know
no,
I'm
no, not at
being
all. You're
kind of
not being
harsh,
harsh at
but
all. I think the idea is that I think they're trying to, relay to us is that Henry is so into his hormones. He's so wrapped into probably these feelings that, well, obviously he had for, I forgot her name, the other girl. And now he's kind of put him on to Lydia. So only thing he can think about is his loins, right? And and he's probably never had that. Well, I know he's never had it to this degree. Mind you, in actual time on the show, he's only been around her for what? What would you say? A week? Yeah, if that.
a couple
And
days, yeah.
already willing to do all of these things for her just because of one night where what did they hold each other's hand? I forgot what exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Man,
She
just
was
think
she
if
was at
she
the
had
bars of the jail
had
cell.
kissed him, let alone had sex with him, he'd be done. you know. So, I mean, it actually kind of, I can see that. I can see him and his doing that. I can see this character being this way, and especially they did set it up pretty good because they set it up with, oh my god, I can't think of her name, the girl that he liked before her. Yeah,
Right. And also
right,
because Carl's no longer there, right? So yeah, now that she's moved on,
right.
yeah, now it seems like okay, he needs okay, but fundamentally the core of that love story. I'm not saying that 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 doesn't have some validity. What I'm saying is that the love story itself, the Romeo and Juliet aspect of it starts getting old after a while, and it's not like we don't have fresh takes on what could happen. This is the even knowing, or maybe especially knowing Lydia's backstory, it definitely feels like there is the potential for something bigger to happen between the two of them, which could expand both of their worlds instead of just making it feel like, well, Henry has to be some kind of martyr to Lydia in order to succeed at this, and Lydia somehow has to betray everybody in order. I'm like, I'm not, again, I'm not saying that it's an easy approach, but but the idea that somehow Henry has to be her knight in shining armor.
Oh,
I
that
don't know.
aspect.
It just doesn't
You don't
sit
like
that
that
well with
he's the
me.
knight in shining armor to her.
I don't like that that's where it feels like it's headed. I don't like that because I don't feel like don't get me wrong, right? I mean, they did set it up pretty well. They set it up really well for Daryl to have these, conflicting feelings about both wanting to help her and wanting to basically abandon her at any moment. I feel like that was good, and it also fits in nicely with the way that Henry
Enid. Her name is
reacts to
Enid.
her.
My bad.
But where
Enid.
it doesn't work, Enid, right? But where it doesn't work is where Henry and she seem to disregard everything else that's happening in order to do whatever they are going to do. I feel like the reason that matters is because The Walking Dead hammers into our brains all the time that
Right.
loyalty is
Loyalty
everything.
until there's some vagina involved. Anthony in the chat room, in a world where it has tremendously turned further into survival of the fittest, how would he not want to be the knight in shining armor? Yeah.
I know, and that's a really good point, and that's why I'm saying that it's not like I don't understand why that's happening. It's that meta in the story. It just always feels like that's the default mode for every relationship, for every situation where somebody is in any kind of peril and they happen to be a woman. There's only a few instances on The Walking Dead where they're sort of able to deal with things themselves. And when love is involved, it always seems like somebody has to rescue somebody else. And it just, I don't know. Again, it just gets old.
But
It just starts feeling like,
Jen, if we
nah.
were out somewhere, me and
Okay.
you were hanging out, and a guy just is about to beat you up, wouldn't you want me to come in there and stop him from doing it?
Well, okay, that assumes that I'm not carrying mace, and it assumes that I don't know, some kind of jujitsu or something.
Jiu-jitsu
I mean,
for real?
okay, so, no, but I could pretend. I don't know. I'm sure there's. I could maybe I'm carrying something else. Who knows? My point is not that so much. My point is, and also my life is not being written by writers. I don't think. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Chuck isn't up there writing my books or anything. Sorry, Supernatural. But the idea that sort of the writers have to continually default back to this idea of, again, just the Romeo and Juliet sort of feeling. I'm not begrudging the character for experiencing what the character does. I do feel like that is authentic. I'm just begrudging the writers for not being original in the story. That's all. The romance feels
I agree with you. I mean,
a little tropey
to this degree. And Anthony says that's the tone of societal gender roles. And I agree with you.
He's not wrong. He's
and
right.
Glenn
He's
wasn't
totally
that
right.
kind of situation.
Yeah, there are a few that didn't, and I think Michonne and Rick were also sort of
Andrea
cast.
and Shane.
They didn't fit into a
Andrea
nice
and Shane.
mold.
Remember, she's the one that basically raped him in the car.
Yeah, I guess sort of, but that's not but that's not the same thing. If Shane had been around to save Andrea at any given point, that feels like that's probably what would have happened. I don't know. It's just it's the idea that it's not just the idea that women can't fend for themselves. It's something more than that. It's the idea that every love story has to be about rebellion, and every story has to be about somebody becoming sort of the martyr for the relationship. That is just it's just old and tropey. It isn't that I think the characters aren't behaving the way the characters would behave. This is a perfect playground for them to invent and create brand new ideas, and instead we're just sort of always rehashing
I
the same old
don't
stuff.
know
And
though.
I
Like
don't know, it's just
I
weird to me.
criticize this show quite a bit, and I don't know if that's true with this show because, first of all, much like Game of Thrones, now like it seems like the women are running everything on on the show, right? And then plus you have the most toughest women on television on the show. You have Michonne, Maggie, Tara. So I
Yes.
mean, I
Yes,
don't know about that one. Carol.
yes, which makes me yes, which makes me believe more and more, just by even by virtue of what you said, that they are the ones that should be that they are the ones that should be leading the
They are
call.
leading.
That it shouldn't be that I okay,
Uh-huh.
okay, I just identified it. I guess I had to process it out through through talk. What bothers me about this is that there has to be a victim. Is that it has to be that one of the characters is dependent on the other because they are a victim, therefore needs saving, therefore that equals romance. That is so, it's almost
What has to
borderline
be the victim,
abusive, and
though?
I don't like it. And it's
You know how many women I've had to save in my life?
she okay.
I've had to save
Are you
so
telling
many
me?
women in my
Wait,
life.
wait. Are you telling me?
Whew.
Are you telling me that you think Henry would have been interested in Lydia if Lydia hadn't been the
Yes.
persecuted?
Yes, because he wants a
Really? You
woman.
really think so?
I think that's his main thing. Is that's just a byproduct of it. But he really wants.
There's
None of them wanted
others.
him.
There are others
None of them
at
wanted him.
Hilltop right
She was the
now.
only one. I think his thing is more
Well,
so that she showed him attention when he wasn't getting it. Remember, they did a whole thing of him.
oh,
Yeah, believe
yeah.
me,
Okay,
when
I can see
she's an
that.
attractive woman, when you wash off all the dirt, she looks pretty good. You know, and they had that moment, and he's going off that moment. So I don't think it's necessarily that, but I think in this case, it's really different though because I'll say this: she isn't a like she's telling him stop following me, like she isn't like your normal damsel in distress. I wouldn't say, and not on this one.
Well, they certainly
I mean,
make
she's
her
going
out to
through it.
be. I
She's
mean,
going through it,
yes,
but she's like, okay, I'm gonna go back. These are my people. I mean, I get what you're saying. Like that can be annoying when they use the same tropes, a lot. But I don't know though. Like I'm trying to think, what was another
right.
situation on the show like that? Uh-huh.
Well, okay. Well, I promise that I will come up with a list of the situations that I find difficult in terms of
Mhm.
romance, quasi romance on The Walking Dead for the next
Uh-huh.
episode. But for right now, I don't think that
Mhm.
any of the characters, including Henry and Lydia, are behaving in any way that they wouldn't behave based on the way that they're written. So I will give the
I
show
can't
that.
believe I'm
The
defending The
show
Walking
definitely
Dead.
has that. Also, I don't think also also I don't think that Daryl would be as hot and heavy
Mhm.
to defend Lydia if
That's
she
true.
wasn't a victim. If she wasn't the victim of abuse, I don't think that Daryl would be as adamant about
Because
adamant and conflicted about
he's a
wanting
victim
to bring
of
her
abuse.
in.
So they're like they kind of have a kindred thing.
Right.
I like that. I
Right.
like it as a
Right.
callback
So I
though
mean it that does
to
make
his
sense.
earlier character. Because remember they're trying to establish him as a lead, so they're rebranding him and by reminding you of his backstory in a way.
Right. And this episode did a good job in terms of making him seem stronger
Right.
mentally and
Now,
physically.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Daryl, but Daryl is not beating. Norman Reedus is not beating up or having a chance with Ryan Hurst. Ryan
Ryan
Hurst would
Hurst.
beat him into glue. It's a big glue. I put the picture up so people can see. how they look, side by side. And I think Ryan Hurst, they said it was like 6'5", and he's like a big dude. And it's funny, they're like fighting with each other.
Yeah.
And I thought the scene was very well done. The scene between the two. And I love this scene where he stabs him, and and then he's all like just casually pulling the knife out of himself, like like whatever. I thought that was pretty cool. The fight scene was really, really well done, and I'll give them this. They make it somewhat believable that he had the way he does defeat him in the fight. They make it somewhat believable, like what I mean, like because there's no way that he could straight up fight him. You know what I mean? Like there's no way he's not going to straight up beat him in a fight.
I do, and I also think that they did choreograph it well enough so that you could see that Ryan Hurst's character is clearly slower than Daryl. If you go back and you really watch it, you can see that Ryan Hurst's character, that Beta, is a little bit more lumbering in his actions, and that's all choreography. That's everything.
Oh yeah, no,
so it does work. But you're right. In just a straight up strength contest.
He reminds me of Hurst. He's like he looks like Ryan Hurst's character Beta looks like a boss in Resident Evil game or something, like you fight him on level 4 or something, And I love the gold tooth. That was something I didn't notice. That I guess I just didn't pay attention. His little gold tooth. He looks like a white zombie rapper. Like he looks pretty hilarious. But I don't know if you saw.
Is his rapper name Beta Bling?
Beta Bling, hilarious.
Beta Bling.
I don't know if you saw him. Excuse me for coughing. I don't know if you saw him on Ryan Hurst on Talking Dead afterwards, where he talked about how he constructed his suit, by using a little bit of every, well, not every character, but a lot of the characters, and I thought that was really cool. That was a nice little look. He looks awesome. No, he has I love the way, and he has the mannerisms down, and the voice is really cool, and all of that. So, even when he has his Christian Bale thing going, but he does it really good. He's very good, very imposing.
It's interesting things that I think that they've done with the Whisperers so far, right? Is that they've make them. Can you imagine this? Okay, if I told you that outside there were a group of people who were whispering and they were terrifying, would you be scared?
No.
Yeah, probably not. You'd be like, well, why are they whispering? What the heck?
Yeah. It
is the very power behind the characters and their motions, just the precision of what they do that makes them terrifying, and the fact that they don't need to use their voices to project themselves is it's unnerving. It's very unnerving. So the Beta character, when he talks, it's like because he talks so little, it feels like everything he says is important. Like you lean in to hear what is he going to say next.
Mm-hmm. Great character. I don't know why he's wearing a leather coat, as hot as it is out there, but okay. Maybe it's extra protection, I guess, from the walkers. I don't know.
I wonder if that choice is really not just to hide. There's so much of him to hide. Sure, leather would give you some like bite protection for sure, but I wonder if it wasn't sort of a more practical choice, like putting him in the jacket, in the coat, sort of hides some of the like it makes him both unassuming at the same time that he is huge and anything but unassuming.
What's so funny to me is I can just only imagine someone who maybe stopped watching maybe the second season or so, and then just decided, you know what, I'm gonna turn on The Walking Dead, and then they see the whispers and they're like, what the hell has happened to this show? You know, like they talking now. You know, like
that was
a friend of mine actually had a moment like that. Like this show then went off the rails. Now the zombies can think and talk, and it's like, you know,
at the end of last season, that was legitimately a topic of conversation on almost every group that I belonged to, where people were asking the people who had read the comics, is that for real? Is that for real? Do they really talk now? Because I'm done. And it was so, like, it was so interesting, people's responses to it, and when people like me would say, you know, I think the Whisperers are actually a more dangerous group than the Saviors were, they laughed and said, you know, that seems ridiculous. How is that even possible? And it does seem ridiculous. It does. It's interesting how effective that actually is. But I have to say one more thing about Ryan Hurst, in that, especially in that Daryl scene, the two of them together, clearly, it's not just that their fighting styles are different. It's, you can really feel the energy difference between the Beta character and Daryl's character. There is, and I don't know if this was intentional, but on the Daryl side, it feels like there is so much passion behind what he's doing, and on the Beta side, it feels so much more mechanical. You know, mechanical with an assured outcome, but mechanical. And I thought that was really interesting, because I don't usually notice that Daryl has any kind of, I don't really notice Daryl's anything. I don't notice his affect, because his affect is always so flat. So in this scene, it was actually kind of surprising.
Yeah. And I think I said this before on another show. Like, if he's not on the next season or next episode of Ride, or sorry, this season of Ride, I don't, you know, they messed up a big opportunity.
He should be. He's got the whole Sons of Anarchy tie-in.
Yeah. So, yeah, you gotta make it happen. So, before we say goodbye, any last notes you want to make?
I think I just would like to say that this episode was probably, to me, as terms of ranking the series right now, this episode does a lot to resurrect my hope for what could happen in the rest of the season. It ranks pretty high in terms of where we are, both seasonally and series wise. It's definitely, it feels like it's a much higher point, and I don't know if we needed to, well, obviously, I mean, we needed to grid all the story, but it does feel like there's sort of, the gears are starting to click, and it doesn't feel so disconnected from the Walking Dead of previous seasons, which I think is a good thing.
I agree. I'm looking forward to it, and you know, maybe it's gonna go somewhere. Hey, Sybil. So let's hope that it goes somewhere that we're happy about.
I really did like the fact that they introduced the Highwaymen without much fanfare. I mean, we saw the signs, you know, the symbols on the back of the signs, and that was actually kind of interesting. The idea of marking territory was kind of cool. There were a lot of things about the Highwaymen that I really liked, but I think the most valuable thing about the introduction of that storyline is how unique it is to what we've seen so far in terms of how communities sort of get together and represent each other. It feels not just different and new, it feels really authentic. Like, you could, I mean, not that you could see every single thing happening, but there seems to be a kind of authentic nature to the way that they all got together and the way that they stick together.
Yes. Yeah, I'm all for it. I cannot wait. Hello?
I'm here.
I can't wait. I'm all for it. So
And they didn't kill Ezekiel, right? They could have, or they could have taken Ezekiel. I mean, they could have. It would. So clearly, they're not the Whisperers without any moral compass, or they're not amoral, I guess I should say. So they feel different already. They don't feel like a Negan group. They don't feel like a Whisperers group. They feel much more this is who we are. Like, they have formed their own identity, but their own identity isn't necessarily subject to the rules that we have so far been introduced to in The Walking Dead, where everybody is either an enemy or a friend. Like, maybe there's some gray area in between, and maybe that's okay.
Right. Well,
I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. So how can people get you on social media and all that good stuff?
Well, when social media is working, they can find me at Following Bliss One. Actually, they can usually find me on Twitter because, hey, Twitter is a good platform and it's hardly ever down. So shout out to Twitter. Anyway, you can find me on Twitter at Following Bliss One, and you can visit my websites at criticallaughs.com and moviesmakethemeal.com.
All right. And you can get me at Kinte F on Twitter and Instagram when it's open or when it's working. At Kinte Ferguson, KinteFergerson on Instagram, and indyradio.org. That's indyradio.org. We'll catch you next time for an all new episode. You have a good one.